The fluorescent lights of the diner buzzed softly overhead, casting a pale glow across the empty booths. Emma Chen sat alone at the corner table, methodically cutting into her slice of turkey, willing herself not to cry. Outside, snow fell in thick, lazy flakes, blanketing the sleeping town in white. Somewhere in the distance, church bells chimed, a reminder that this was Christmas night, and she was spending it in a 24-hour diner because the silence of her apartment had become unbearable. She was 42 years old, and this was not how she'd imagined her life would turn out. The divorce papers had been finalized 3 weeks ago. Her 2 adult children were spending the holidays with their father and his new family, a younger woman with a Pinterest-perfect life and a house that probably smelled like cinnamon and pine. Emma had told them to go, insisted even, not wanting to burden them with her sadness, but now pushing cranberry sauce around her plate while a tired waitress refilled coffee for the only other. Customers in the place, Emma wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Pride was a cold companion on Christmas night. She was about to signal for the check when the diner's door chimed. A gust of winter air swept in, along with a man and a little girl. The child couldn't have been more than 7, bundled in a purple coat that had seen better days, her dark curls escaping from beneath a knit cap. The man looked exhausted, the kind of bone-deep weariness that comes from carrying too much for too long. His jacket was thin for the weather, and Emma noticed he steered the girl toward a booth with gentle hands, the way her own father used to guide her when she was small. Emma returned her attention to her meal, not wanting to intrude on their moment. Through the corner of her eye, she watched them settle in. The little girl's face lit up as she examined the laminated menu, but the man's expression was strained. He spoke quietly to the waitress, and Emma's heart sank as she caught fragments of the conversation. "Just the hot chocolate for her, please. And maybe some toast if it's not too much." The waitress, bless her, nodded without judgment. "Daddy, aren't you hungry?" the little girl asked, her voice carrying across the nearly empty diner. "I ate earlier, sweetheart." "This is your special Christmas dinner." Emma's throat tightened. She recognized that lie. She'd told versions of it herself years ago, when money had been impossibly tight and her children's needs came before everything else. She looked down at her own plate, at the generous portions she could barely finish, and something inside her shifted. This aching loneliness she'd been drowning in suddenly felt selfish. Small compared to what was unfolding 3 booths away, the little girl chattered happily about the Christmas lights they'd seen on their walk, about a snowman someone had built in the park. Her joy was uncontainable, genuine, undimmed by circumstances Emma suspected were far from ideal, and the father listened with complete attention, smiling despite the worry etched around his eyes, making his daughter feel like the most important person in the world. Emma found herself standing before she'd fully decided to move. She walked toward their booth, her heart hammering. The man looked up, wariness crossing his features, the automatic guardedness of someone who'd learned to expect judgment or pity or worse. "I'm sorry to interrupt," Emma said softly. "I couldn't help but notice—" She paused, choosing her words carefully. "I ordered way too much food. My eyes were bigger than my stomach, and I hate to see it go to waste. Would you 2 be willing to help me out?" The man's jaw tightened. "We're fine, thank you." "Please," Emma said, and the word came out more desperate than she'd intended. "I'm sitting over there by myself, and honestly, I could use the company. Would you consider joining me? Both of you." The little girl tugged on her father's sleeve. "Can we, Daddy?" "The lady seems lonely." Out of the mouths of babes, Emma thought, as the simple truth of the child's observation hung in the air between them. The man looked at his daughter, then back at Emma, and something in his expression cracked open. "I'm Marcus," he said finally. "This is Olivia. Emma, please, come sit." They gathered at Emma's booth, and she watched Olivia's eyes widen at the spread of food. Without making a fuss, Emma redistributed everything, pushing plates toward her new companions, ordering additional sides, brushing off Marcus's protests. The waitress caught on quickly, bringing fresh plates and more coffee, a knowing smile on her weathered face. As they ate, the stories emerged. Marcus was a widower, had been for 2 years. His wife had died of cancer, leaving him with a 6-year-old and a mountain of medical debt. He worked 2 jobs, but tonight both employers had given him the day off. A kindness that meant no pay when he desperately needed every dollar. They'd been to the free Christmas dinner at the community center earlier, but Olivia had been so excited about the holiday that he'd wanted to give her something more, something that felt special. The diner had been all he could manage. "She deserves better than this," Marcus said quietly, watching Olivia color on the paper placemat with crayons the waitress had provided. "Some Christmas this turned out to be." "Are you kidding?" Emma replied. "Look at her. She's happy. You know why? Because she's with you. That's the gift that matters." Marcus's eyes glistened. "I keep thinking I'm failing her. Sarah would have known what to do. She was the strong one." Emma reached across the table, surprising herself with the gesture. "You're still here. You're showing up every day. That's strength, Marcus. That's love." They talked for hours, the conversation flowing like they'd known each other for years. Instead of minutes, Emma shared her own story, the divorce, the empty nest, the crushing loneliness that had driven her to a diner on Christmas night. She talked about feeling invisible, about questioning whether she'd wasted her life, about the fear that she'd never matter to anyone again. "You matter," Olivia said suddenly, looking up from her drawing. "You matter to us. Right, Daddy?" Marcus nodded, his voice thick. "Right, sweetheart." Something loosened in Emma's chest, a knot she hadn't even known she'd been carrying. This little girl, this struggling father, they'd needed a warm meal, but Emma had needed them just as much. She'd needed to be reminded that connection was still possible, that she still had something to give. That loneliness was a choice she didn't have to keep making. "I have an idea," Emma said, an unexpected boldness rising within her. "What are you two doing tomorrow?" "Daddy has to work," Olivia said sadly. "Not until evening," Marcus corrected. "Morning's free. Come to my place. I'll make a proper Christmas brunch. I have presents my kids left behind. They'd fit you, Olivia. And Marcus, I could use some help fixing my leaky faucet if you're handy." It was a thin pretense, and they all knew it. But Marcus smiled, a real smile this time, reaching his eyes. "I'm very handy, and Olivia loves pancakes." Then it settled. As midnight approached, they finally left the diner. Emma insisted on paying the bill, ignoring Marcus's protests. Outside, the snow had stopped, and the world sparkled under streetlights. They exchanged phone numbers, made plans, said goodnight with the awkwardness of new friends who'd shared unexpected intimacies. Emma walked back to her apartment, but it didn't feel empty anymore. She pulled out her phone and texted both her children, telling them she loved them, that she was okay, better than okay, actually. Then she started making a list of what she'd need for tomorrow's brunch. In the morning, her doorbell rang at 10 sharp. Olivia burst in wearing that same purple coat, clutching a handmade card. "Merry Christmas, Miss Emma." Marcus followed, carrying a small toolbox and wearing a tentative hope on his face. Emma hugged them both. These beautiful strangers who'd become something more in the space of one lonely night. As they cooked together, laughed together, built something new from their collective broken pieces, Emma understood what she'd been missing. She'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she'd forgotten. She could still create, still connect, still matter. Loneliness hadn't been her destiny. It had been a door, waiting for her to walk through it towards something better. That Christmas night, 3 lonely souls had found each other in a diner that smelled of coffee and hope. And in that finding, they'd discovered that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about showing up, about saying yes to connection, about asking a simple question that changes everything. "Can we join you?" The answer, Emma knew now, would always be yes.